Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairy tale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Disney bride Anna Newmeyer about her ceremony at Place de Remy in France at EPCOT, with a reception at Seabreeze Point at the Boardwalk and a dessert party in Norway at EPCOT. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how she chose all these locations and how she planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Anna.
Thank you. How's it going?
It is going great. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Of course.
I always like to start at the very beginning and find out how you and your fiancé decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
Yeah, so I have been going to Disney since I was a little girl. Since 6 years old, we went for a yearly vacation at Christmas time, and I've been going basically ever since. And I started bringing my then boyfriend to Disney with us at Christmas time, and the rest is history. Now we go to Disney about 2 or 3 times a year, and we have annual passes, and we love it.
That's wonderful. How did your friends and family react when they found out where the wedding was going to be?
Very excited. So his family had never been since he was little, so they were super pumped. My family, it's like a second home almost, so they were also very excited, and all my friends were super pumped as well because they had never really gotten to go, so it was going to be a special experience kind of for everybody.
That's awesome. How many guests did you invite, and how many were able to make the trip?
We invited 18, and all 18 were able to make it.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. Did you set up a room block for your guests?
We didn't. So we actually stayed off property. We rented houses. There's houses that we normally stay at when we go down at Christmas time. And so we rented them. They're right across the street from one another, and they're about 10 minutes outside of the park. So we did that kind of as a way to save some money. And then we all kind of got to stay together, which was super fun as well.
Oh, that's a great idea. How did you choose the day of the week and time of day for your event?
My husband's birthday is March 19th, and my birthday is February 19th, and we knew we wanted to get married in September. And so we also started dating on January 19th as well. And so we chose September 19th because that's kind of our lucky number.
And how'd you pick the time of day?
That was a tough one. It kind of just depended on the venue. We were pretty much open. We liked the idea of getting to spend, the entire day at Disney because our guests, had never been. And so that's when we kind of ended up with, we knew we wanted it to be at EPCOT. There was a couple different venues that had different time slots, but we really liked Place de Remy, so we picked that one. And we loved it. It was very early, but it was worth the early wake-up call.
A lot of people are a little bit intimidated by using Place de Remy because you have to start so early, and then sometimes they worry about the lineup of people trying to get into the ride, being visible from their ceremony or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about how that worked for yours?
Okay, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it. My wake-up call was 11:30 at night. So I went to bed at about 9. I got like 2 hours of sleep, but it was a very good 2 hours, and it was worth it. So we started getting ready about 11:30 because we stayed off-site. I think it would be different if you stayed on-site, maybe a little bit closer, but we started heading towards the boardwalk. So we had our whole group park at the boardwalk parking lot for guests because we were having our reception there. We all parked at the boardwalk. We got there at about 5 o'clock. We staggered my husband's group. We staggered him first, and then the bride's group, my group, second, because we didn't want to see each other before the ceremony. And so we got all our bridal party photos at that time. So me with the girls and him with the guys. And there was about an hour period before our ceremony where we could take photos. That's at least how I planned it. And then we had the ceremony. The only thing that kind of went wrong, I didn't even notice, you couldn't even tell on video, is that the Skyliner started during the ceremony. I didn't notice. My husband didn't notice. Some of our guests were worried because they were like, oh my gosh, it's a little loud. But We pushed through, didn't even notice. And that's basically the only thing that went wrong. The park is closed when you have your ceremony. Our ceremony started at, I believe it was 6:45 or 6:30. So nobody's in the park except for the staff. And I mean, I've gone to the park basically my whole life. It's an experience that I'll remember forever. Like you're the only people in the park. Like I don't even know how you could experience something like that besides what we did. So I'm very grateful that we picked that. It was like a once in a lifetime. It was amazing. There was no complaints. It was very beautiful to have the ride in the background. I know there's 2 different spots you can have the wedding location at. You can have it closer to Place de Remy, the Ratatouille ride, and you can have it further back where you have the Eiffel Tower in the background. So we had it with the Eiffel Tower in the background. It was beautiful. We loved it. It was better than we could have even dreamed. It was worth the wake-up call.
Do you have your video back yet to know if the sound of the Skyliner is audible on that?
Yeah, so we got the video back. You can't hear a thing. We were mic'd up during the ceremony, so I think that helped, but it worked out perfect.
That's great. Now, how did you choose Seabreeze Point for your reception?
That one was a little bit of a money saver. I definitely like the boardwalk. I mean, I've been going to Disney ever since I was little, and the boardwalk has always been a place we go out to dinner, and I've really liked the atmosphere. And so we thought it would be kind of fun to be outdoors and by the lake. So that's where we ended up with that. And it also, like I said, is a great way to save money when you're planning because there's no extra added venue costs. You only pay for the food at the reception. You don't pay for the extra added venue costs.
Yeah, that's a great point. When you pick a resort location, most of them don't have venue fees. They just have the food and beverage minimums.
Exactly. And what was special about that one, too, is it was outside. I think it gave just as much as some of the EPCOT venues did that were outdoors, but it was no extra charge. And I know a lot of the other areas oftentimes are ballrooms that are no charge, so I feel like you really got a special deal there, getting that with no extra venue charge.
That's great. Now, did you guys use any outside vendors for the portions of your event that you were able to?
So we picked a couple outside vendors. For the main parts, we stuck with Disney, but for photo and videography, we went with outside vendors. The reason I came to that conclusion was, in my personal opinion, I was not a huge fan of how the Disney photos turned out at the parks from what I looked at online, and so I ended up going with an outside vendor. It was nice because I got engagement photos included, and I don't know, I feel like we became very close. Our photographer was Maddie Goat, and she was just so sweet. I feel like we became friends by the end. We're definitely going to go back and do our yearly family photos with her. She was just spectacular. We love her to death. And then our videographers was kind of chaotic. We booked a videographer a year out, and then she canceled about 5 months away from the wedding date. And so we ended up going with Golden View Video from Maddie's recommendation. She had worked with them before at a couple previous weddings. And they had done some Disney weddings prior to ours, and they were phenomenal, so professional. It was really nice to pick someone. This is something I would highly recommend to other people. Pick, maybe if you can, a videographer that's worked with your photographer before, especially because ours was basically we started shooting video and photo at 5:45 in the morning, and we were going till 9:30 at night. So they're with each other all day long. It really helps if they kind of have knowledge of each other and they know how to work together really well. I think that really came in handy throughout the whole day. But yeah, we were overall very happy with our choice to outsource for photo and video.
That's a great point. So then how did you guys choose your officiant?
So our officiant was actually my best friend's husband. So my husband officiated their wedding earlier last year, and then he officiated our wedding. So we ended up going with a close friend, because then they could be part of the whole entire day. And I just feel like when you choose someone like that, especially when you're traveling, it's someone that you know. He had never officiated a wedding before, and he was perfect. I feel like it's way more personable when you do something like that. And if you're making the trip down there, I think that's a great option that people should consider, is going with someone in their group. And then we ended up getting married at the courthouse. We're from Michigan. We ended up getting married at the courthouse in Michigan in August, so a month before our wedding. So he didn't have to worry about getting any of the paperwork done, so he could do all the documents and everything. So it was super easy.
That's wonderful. Did you guys add any kind of entertainment to the ceremony or the reception?
So we did a violinist. That's just standard. You get to choose someone who plays an instrument. We chose violin. We had playback music for our whole ceremony, but he was going to just play pre-ceremony music, and then we were going to let the audio play. But he came up to me before the ceremony. He was like, listen, I really think that I could really jazz up the audio that you have, so I was wondering if I can play over top of it. And it was beautiful. It was the best decision ever. He was amazing, phenomenal. And everybody on the Disney, like all the Disney cast members were saying he was one of the best violinists that they had. So yeah, he was phenomenal. I would highly recommend, if you have audio, to not be nervous to maybe layer it with one of their musicians that they have there ready for you. I think that adds like a nice little special touch. And then that was the only thing we really had at our ceremony. And at our reception, we had a Mickey and Minnie Mouse come out and meet all the guests. And that was worth every penny.
That's great. Did you pick specific costumes for them?
We did. So we picked, my husband was in a tux, so we had Mickey wear his tux and then Minnie in her little white gown. So Mickey had his top hat on and Minnie had her bridal dress on. It was super cute. So they kind of matched us. It looked really good in photos. And the guests really liked it. It was super fun.
That's wonderful. Do you have any menu items or cake flavors you would recommend?
So we actually did no cake because it was breakfast. A, we don't really like cake, but B, it was breakfast and we went with all the breakfast selections. I think one thing for people who are planning that they could maybe kind of keep in mind, I'd say don't be scared to pick a standard menu and then go to your planner and say, hey, can I add this and take out that? So that's what we did. We really made it basically pretty much all customized. I have pretty severe food allergies and they were super, super helpful. I had all my own food plated separately, but we did things like Mickey waffles, stuff like that for sweet stuff in the morning instead of cake.
Got it. Can you tell my listeners a little bit about the dessert party you added in Norway at EPCOT?
Yes, so we did that because we wanted to watch the fireworks at EPCOT. We thought that would be a great way to end off the night. We chose, I think the desserts I chose were the Dole Whip puffs. We chose those that was a big hit. And then I did a burger stand, like a little slider stand. So people were able to get kind of like a dinner option and then a dessert option on top of that. And then something that was really nice is they brought out some other special little treats that we didn't order. I don't know how that happened, but that was a fun little bit of pixie dust that we got that day. And yeah, it was a very big hit. I think it was nice because it was very casual. You know, after we had the super fancy morning, people were able to kind of relax, take a big break throughout the day, and then come back and enjoy the fireworks and have kind of a relaxed meal after they were able to get some rest.
That's a great point. Did you guys do a ride mix-in?
We did. So to finish off the night after the fireworks, we went back to Ratatouille and we rode that ride, which was a big hit. I feel like starting out the day there and then ending it there was kind of like a full circle moment. We got to, after the fireworks, walk through the park. It was basically only us our group walking through the park with a guide. It was super, super fun. We loved it. The ride mix-in was great. We really wanted to do Guardians of the Galaxy, but I'd say one thing to keep in mind there is your dress. My dress was too big, so I wouldn't have been able to wear my dress on that ride.
Got it. Okay. Can you tell my listeners a little bit about the rehearsal dinner you had at the Grand Floridian Cafe?
For sure, yeah. So we had our rehearsal. It started at about, I want to say 4 o'clock, and that was at the Grand Floridian. We did it in one of the ballrooms. By the way, the ballrooms, they were beautiful. The carpet that is in the Grand Floridian in the ballrooms is absolutely stunning. We had our photographer come and meet us there, and she took photos. As I mentioned, the carpet was beautiful. It made the photos absolutely gorgeous. And then afterwards, rather than booking with Disney Fairy Tale Weddings for a meal in one of the ballrooms, I made reservations at the Grand Floridian Cafe. I had to make 3 reservations, so I used my Disney account, my mom's Disney account, and then my best friend's Disney account. And we booked 3 reservations all within 5 minutes of one another. And then I had someone from our wedding party go a couple minutes early before Grand Floridian Cafe opened at 5 p.m. And I had them check in and say, hey, we have these 3 reservations. They're separate, but we were wondering if we could be placed all together. When you book that early in the night, when you're like the first group of reservations in, it's way easier for them to put you all together. So it was a breeze. We all got placed together. We did the same thing at Boma the day after the wedding for a farewell brunch. I booked 2 reservations for Boma. It was 10 and 9, I think, for our reservations, 10 and 9 people. And we booked them, I think they were 10 minutes apart. And that was at the end when Boma was nearing their lunch period. So they have like an hour in between breakfast and lunch where they don't accept reservations or people coming in. And so we were able to book right before that period. And then we were able to all be sat next to one another, which worked out perfect. And then after that, I booked 2 firework cruises on the night of our rehearsal because there is a 10-person limit for each boat. And so we booked 2. There were snacks on there, and we all got to watch the fireworks. So it was lovely.
That's fantastic. Now, we talked a little bit about this when you were addressing the early hour for your ceremony venue, but can you give my listeners a timeline of how the day all fit together?
Yes. I'm very proud of my timeline. It took a lot of careful planning to put it together. So we all got ready from basically 11:30 until 4 o'clock is when I set the time because I wanted to leave buffer time. I wanted to put a buffer hour in there before we had to leave because everybody had to get their stuff. It's going to be a long day. So from 11:30 to 4 o'clock, we all got our hair and makeup done. The groom headed out at about 3:50. So he was ready before me and the girls were ready. So he went and got his pictures with his groomsmen and his parents over at the park. And then the bridal party, all the girls and my parents, we got there at, I want to say 5:30 in the morning. We got a shuttle from the front of the boardwalk that took us all behind the scenes at EPCOT, and they dropped us off behind France. And we got there at about like 5:55, and we took photos from about 6 o'clock until 6:30. And then we started ceremony prep. So they tucked me away with my dad, and then they brought everybody out. We started getting everybody seated. The ceremony lasted, we wanted to keep it pretty short and sweet so we could have more time to do photos, and we did our dances there as well. So the ceremony was about 15-ish minutes, so it was fairly short. And then right after our ceremony, my husband and I did our first dance, and then I did my dance with my dad. That is something I did not really see anybody talk about online, is doing your dances at your venue. My planner mentioned it to me, so I didn't have to pay an extra audio fee for my reception to get all the audio equipment because I wasn't going to have a DJ. So I saved a ton of money by just using the audio equipment that came with my venue for the ceremony, and I didn't have to pay any extra. So then after that, my husband and I took some photos together for about, I want to say it was until 7:15, 7:30, and then we headed out back on the shuttle. Our whole group fit onto one shuttle because it was 19 of us total, so there were 17 guests and then my husband and I. And then we headed back to the boardwalk. They dropped us off at the front, and then we took group photos. I went to my planner. Originally, when they had planned it, they had put ceremony and reception with only an hour in between. And I went to her and I said I wanted it to have 2 hours in between so that we could take photos at the boardwalk beforehand. So we took group photos for about like 20-30 minutes on the boardwalk on the lake during sunrise. And then everybody headed off towards the pre-reception. And then during that pre-reception period, my husband and I took our photos together, our couple photos. A fun little tidbit, we were getting off the elevator at the boardwalk, and we got to get a photo with Bob Iger, which was a fun part of the day. So that was like cherry on top. And so, yeah, we took our group photos. My husband and I arrived about 5 minutes before the pre-reception was over. And then we went and all ate breakfast together. That was about an hour. And then an hour into the reception, my husband and I went and got Mickey Mouse and then brought everybody. It was a surprise, so nobody really knew that they were going to be there. And we took pictures with them for about 30 minutes. But yeah, we took a whole bunch of group photos with Mickey and Minnie, and then my husband and I went off and took some photos, just us with Mickey and Minnie. And then that was basically the end of our reception. We were still able to eat. People were just relaxing. and that ended at about noon. And then I worked into the day from noon until 7 o'clock. People were able to go back to the houses that we rented. They were able to take naps, refresh, change their outfits if they wanted to for the evening. During that time, I think one of the favorite things that I did was I booked dinner for my husband and I at the Flying Fish at the Boardwalk. And we ate, like I got to eat in my dress and he was in his tux. And it was just us two. I think that was a super special moment where we kind of just got to have our own little alone time. You know, I think when you have a wedding with a whole bunch of people, even though our group was small, you still want to hang out with everybody, but we got to have that moment, just him and I, which I think was super nice. So that was at 5 o'clock. We had our dining reservations, and then we met up with everybody at the back entrance of EPCOT, and we walked from there with our guide all the way around to Norway. One thing that I did is when we walked to Norway, when we went in through that back entrance, I had us turn left, and so we could go pass by the EPCOT ball and see it in the background. And then after our dessert party, we went the other way. So all the guests basically got to go around the whole entire World Showcase. So then we got back to our dessert party. We were there until about 9:30. I want to say it went from 8 to 9:30. We watched the fireworks. They usually there's like a buffer period of about 30 minutes until 10 p.m. and they don't have us leave that section that's roped off for the fireworks for our dessert party. They don't have you leave that until the park clears out a little bit, so we didn't really walk until about 10 o'clock. And then at 10 o'clock, we headed around through the rest of the half of the World Showcase back to France, and we went on Remy's Ratatouille ride to finish off the night.
That's wonderful. When you guys were planning, what were some of the most important aspects where you focused your attention or your budget?
Really, my main focus throughout the whole thing is I really wanted to try and do as much as we could with the money we had budgeted. So originally we had a guest list of about 30 people, and we were like, you know what, if we get it down to immediate family and very close friends, we can do a whole extra grouping of things. So that's really where we kind of cut the budget, is we just kept it kind of small. We wouldn't have changed it. We loved the group we had. It was all people that we were very, very close with. And we got to spend we were there for 4 days. So we did like a lot of special stuff. So on Sunday, before our wedding on Tuesday, we did our rehearsal. And after that, I had booked a meal at the Grand Floridian Cafe. So we all shared a meal there. And then I booked 2 firework cruises, and we went and watched the Halloween party fireworks on the lagoon in front of Magic Kingdom. And that was kind of like our welcome party rehearsal dinner. And then on Monday, we did bachelor and bachelorette parties. So me and the girls went to Magic Kingdom for a couple hours, and then my husband and his groomsmen went, I think they just played like disc golf. They went and did fun guy stuff. And then we all went to bed as early as we could. You know, the nerves get to you and you get excited and you don't want to fall asleep too early. So I ended up getting about 2 hours of sleep. And then we all got our hair done. And then we had that whole next day all together. I really wanted to have Mickey and Minnie there. I thought that was super special. So my husband actually proposed to me at Magic Kingdom with Mickey Mouse. So we definitely wanted Mickey Mouse there. And we felt like, well, if we're going to have Mickey Mouse, then we need to have Minnie Mouse as well. So we had them both. And I really feel like all that extra stuff that we threw in, we wouldn't have been able to do that if we didn't shrink our group down. So I really think that that's how we managed the budget the best, is we made our group very small. We had something fun back up at home that everybody could go to. We watched our video and looked through all the photos. But when you're at the parks and at Disney, I think keeping that group super small, you're kind of able to do a lot more than you would if you had 10 or 15 more people added onto the group list. So I think that was the biggest budgeting tactic. Another thing was staying at those houses saved a ton of money versus staying at the hotels. It was about less than $1,000 for the whole week per house. And that was for all 19 people. So I really don't think that can be beat. So yeah, I feel like that's the two areas where we really did save a lot of money.
That's wonderful. Were there any aspects that were less important where you saved some money and effort?
I look back and I feel like I basically did everything I wanted. I wasn't really dead set on having a lot of flowers, so we did all our own bouquets. I woke up early on Sunday morning and I went to Trader Joe's and I got all of our flowers and we made all the flower bouquets for everybody. That was an area where we really saved money. The florist was going to be about, I want to say our quote was about $1,000 or $1,200. And at Trader Joe's, I spent $150 on flowers. So that was money that I could then, bring Minnie Mouse to our reception. So that was an area where we saved some money. Decor bits and pieces. They don't say this on the Disney website when you're planning, but for our reception, I did all of my own place setting cards, and I had one of my friends put those out when we were taking our photos during the pre-reception. So it's just all little things like that where I think if you're okay with getting a little bit creative and you're a little bit crafty, I think that is 100% an area where you could save money. Is all those little things 100% add up. Same thing, we didn't have a cake. A cake is very expensive. So it's all the little stuff like that we were willing to kind of let go of. And we knew when we look back, we weren't going to be like, oh man, we didn't have flowers coating the reception table. Like, we were going to be okay. So that's an area where we definitely saved a lot of money.
Those are great tips. So out of all of this, what ended up being your favorite memory of your wedding day?
I really loved having Mickey and Minnie. We both did, having Mickey and Minnie at the reception. Getting to see how excited all our guests was. That was super, super fun. I would say meeting Bob Iger was also a memory that we'll remember forever. That was quite an experience. We even got photos and videos. Super cool. And then the fireworks. I think the fireworks, out of all that, I would probably rank the top. I think that is such an awesome way to end out the night. Getting like the front row view. When we walked back to the firework section in Norway, our dessert party, the whole, and like every group we passed in the park was cheering. It was wild. We felt like we were walking the red carpet or something. It was absolutely crazy. So that, I would say, I would rank as my top from the whole entire day, is doing the firework party and getting to walk through the park and people coming up and congratulating us and being all excited, and they didn't even know who we were. It was super, super fun. So yeah, I would say that was my favorite part of the day, but it's hard to pick.
Definitely. Now, did anything go wrong or just not turn out like you expected?
That was the crazy part, is literally nothing went wrong. We were going up to all the cast members and we told them time and time again, we're like, you guys are phenomenal. Like, I remember reading this post. I totally forget who posted it. It was on the Disney Weddings Facebook group I was on. And she had said, you just have to get to the day. I know that the contact with Disney is very minimal, but you just kind of have to trust the process. And after I read that, it was a couple weeks before, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to trust the process. And I did. And nothing went wrong. It was everything that I had emailed them about. It had been done. All the cast members were phenomenal. They were so supportive. The weather, that was the one thing we were very concerned about, being in September. It was very humid all the days before that, and it somehow was 75 degrees with zero humidity the whole day, full sun. We don't even know how that happened. It was truly a blessing. Yeah, literally nothing went wrong. It was like a fairy tale.
That's wonderful. Was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about, and then it turned out not to be a big deal?
I think the weather. I think that was the biggest thing. So we had always gone, my whole life, we've always gone in August to Disney. So I know that those 2 to 3 o'clock crazy storms that roll through. So I didn't plan anything during that time, but I also know that September hurricanes can wreck through there. So the year before, on September 19th, there was that really, really bad hurricane, which it's so sad for all the people who do live in Florida, but it's just on top of that, oh man, that really worried me. But I think I let it go. I think that you can only worry so much about stuff like that. And once I got to the day, even if it had rained, it still would have been perfect. Like Disney handled things so well. So I could 100% tell that they were prepared. The communication was phenomenal on the whole day. If I ever had questions, I could text someone if they weren't there, but if they were there, they'd always be happy to answer them. The plans for the rain, they were very open to my suggestions. Like I said, if it rained during the ceremony, my top pick was the American Rotunda, which they said that's the top pick across the board usually. And then they let me do a ranking pick for the dessert party if it did rain. So I just think they handled that very, very well. So it kind of, as they got closer, my worries were gone. That was like really the only thing I had worried about that much. I think it helped because I've been going to the parks forever, so I feel like that's one thing that came in so much handy when I was planning is I know so much. Even little things like the weather, like I knew not to plan something from 2 to 4 o'clock because that's when it rains all the time during that time of year. So I just think that my knowledge of all those little bits and pieces really helped in the planning process and making it a little bit less stressful than it probably is for others.
Got it. Okay. And is there anything you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
You know, I researched so much. I don't think that there's really anything I would have done differently. I was really happy with all my picks. I will say one thing, like if I ever was uncertain about a pick, that's usually when I knew that I was like not 100%, is I'm like, oh man, I'm not sure if I want that on the menu. Then I would go back, I would take the time to look through everything, and I'd be like, you know what, let's replace it with this. I would take the time and find another alternative that I would be happier with that didn't necessarily cost any extra, but it was just something different. So I think making sure that, you know, if you're not feeling right about something, go to your planner. My planner was so helpful. Her name was Carol. She was very, very helpful. So yeah, I just think don't hesitate to reach out to your planner and get down to the bottom. They're there to help. And I know it can take sometimes a little bit of a while for them to answer emails, like a couple days or so, but they'll get back to you. They're happy to help. And I think that kind of helps with the stress on the day too. Like I knew that they were going to be there and ready to answer any of my questions or concerns that I had. So I think just not being worried to speak up during the planning process will make your day go a lot smoother than if you hadn't spoken up.
That's great advice. Well, Anna, I think you've offered a lot of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in having a wedding or a vow renewal at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.